power of attorney.
That's cool. I asked you if you had contact number for his brother. I didn't ask if you had power of attorney.
I do, but his brother's out of state, and his brothers haven't been answering in years.
Okay.
I've taken care of him.
Do you have
He's not in the right place.
Do you have a number for the brother?
I do.
Okay.
But again, they're out of state, and I've already told you I have power of attorney. I have power of attorney over his legal and medical.
Do you have proof?
He's not in a position.
Do you have proof of the
Yes,
power
I
of
do.
attorney?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Apparently you're being uncooperative.
I'm not being uncooperative. I have power of attorney. No, I'm not being uncooperative. I have power of attorney. I've already said that when he gets in these episodes, he's not in a position to make legal, sound decisions for his health, safety, and well-being. And every time he's been in your care, he's ended up injured and denied a standard of care. He's represented by attorneys, as am I. That is a legal, enforceable document. I've had power of attorney for over 2 years. It's well documented that this is how he behaves, and he's just in one of his episodes. I have all the video before he got into an episode and during his episode to show that this is him. This is nobody else. I'm his legal caretaker. I'm his in-home supportive services caretaker. I provide supervisorial care for him.
Do you have an ID so I can verify this is your name?
So because Charles is in one of his episodes and confused, allegedly, according to the police, he's reported that he does not want returned to me, which Charles is not in a legal position or a mental position to make those decisions. And so the officer accused me of not being cooperative. And, well, you have the video, folks. Decide if I haven't been cooperative. They've located him, and he's allegedly telling law enforcement that he doesn't want to come back. He wants his brother called. I've called his brother. Here, open that. Hold it.
Okay. Do you know what medical conditions he has?
Yes, he has numerous.
Well, which ones?
Well, let's start with a traumatic brain injury, post-concussion syndrome, panic, anxiety, Alzheimer's, early onset of dementia. He suffered a double stroke almost a year ago to this day. And at that time, it was discovered that he had bacterial meningitis, which explained a lot of his neurological behaviors, which were very similar to how he's behaving now. He also had an active brain bleed, and he has another neurological disorder that basically short circuits his thinking and causes him to have seizures and temporary lapses in judgment and memory.
Okay. He's being diagnosed with all this.
Yes, he has, and I have all those medical
How
records.
often does an episode like this happen where he gets into arguments?
Well, it depends. I keep very detailed logs. I've been keeping logs for...
If you just had to estimate how often something like this happens, where he has an episode or goes off and does something.
Well, again, it depends what he's triggered by. He was triggered yesterday by an incident down in San Diego, so his episode actually started yesterday. Then he snapped out of it. This morning he woke up.
Would it be fair to say it happens every so often, like every few months or so?
It would probably be fair to say that, yes. As a matter of fact, he was missing about a month and a half ago
And I do have
down
to
in
ask,
Bakersfield.
because apparently he was alleging that you did have a firearm and pointed a firearm at him at some point.
That's an absolute lie, and again, you have to take what Charles says with a grain of salt.
We understand
Again,
that,
I'm
especially
represented
because-
by an attorney, and so is Charles.
Okay.
And again, I have all of the video from his entire episode this evening.
Oh, this is from earlier?
Oh, yes.
We'll be able to take a look at that so I can just squash that right out.
Oh, well, I would need to contact his lawyers to see if they would be agreeable
We're not trying to press any
to me.
charges, right?
Well, I wouldn't be worried about it anyway because I didn't break any laws. I'm his in-home supportive services caretaker. I have
So
power of
just to-
attorney
just
over
to
legal and medical.
You committed a felony.
And again, he's not in his right mind. He's been deemed incompetent by a court of law on 2 occasions, and he's represented by an attorney, and he is not in any position to make that sort of allegation.
Okay.
And it is false, and it is defamatory.
This is what he's saying,
Okay, and again, I'm telling you,
and it's our job to investigate stuff
and
like this.
that's
why we're
that's
asking
all
this.
well and good, but as long as you play into the mental illness of somebody like Charles, we're not going to get anywhere. I would like for him to be returned to my care.
We'll work on that. Give us just a minute.
Hey, now he's saying I pointed a firearm at him. Yeah. Absolutely false. Absolutely false. I have the live video. I had to put it on lockdown. Folks, the police are alleging that Charles told them that I committed a felony, that I pointed a firearm at him. I'm not going to believe that unless I hear it out of Charles's mouth, for one. And for two, even if he did say something like that, he's not in the right mental capacity to make a statement like that. I was live earlier. Y'all saw the video when I was live, when Charles was misbehaving, because I actually thought that it was on lockdown when it wasn't. First, he accused me of trying to run him over. And then, yes, he started screaming about a firearm, but I had no firearm. This is why you record, folks. For record, for quality training and transparency purposes, because if I didn't have these videos right now, if I didn't have my document right now that says I have power of attorney over Charles, I can guarantee you they'd be hooking me up right now. They would, and they already have Charles in custody. You know, that's quite an accusation to make against somebody that takes care of you if what they're saying is true. And his disease and his illness has progressed to a level, and I'm just going to say this again, folks. Again, I've been recording for years. Ever since Charles's illness started, I've been recording for my own protection and for Charles's protection for situations exactly like this right here. Hey, I might have to get my lawyer on the line if they refuse to release him to my custody. And what they don't realize, these documents were put in place for a reason. For Charles's own protection, because he knew that his illness was going to progress. He knew that he would have days like this. Yeah, just make sure you keep your eyeball on it. Folks, you can call off the search party. Charles has been found. But according to this officer, Charles didn't have anything nice to say about me, which we all know. The disabled, mentally incapacitated person always takes things out on their caretaker. And then he alleged that I wasn't being cooperative. Again, you see this video, folks. I've been more than cooperative. I have nothing to hide. Hey, and just for your consideration also, there's a reason why Charles put that power of attorney in place, because he knew that there would come a day when his illness...
So you're saying the reason he put
I said the reason he put that power of attorney in place is because he knew there would come a day when that document would be necessary due to the progression of his illness.
Yep. Right now,
So-
I'm just trying to figure out as far as what's going on with him, because he's essentially not really too talkative over there, but he's complaining too. So we're trying to figure out. How to
Well,
piece
of course,
that
but
apart.
that's what he does. His
Yeah.
brain is in a full-on episode. Like I said, it started yesterday when he was triggered by an incident that occurred at my condo down in San Diego. And there's an incident report number for that. And the police were very understanding. Same thing. They did not escalate things. They didn't even engage him. They dealt strictly with me as the authorized fiduciary and agent responsible for his health, safety, and well-being.
Okay.
And again, I'll reiterate, I would like him returned to my custody.
Okay.
Yes, Lise, I've been informed that they've found him, but he's in an episode. And he's not happy with me as caretaker, because tonight when he was misbehaving, which I don't say things I can't prove with record, picture, and video evidence, Charles was turned up. He was still in an episode. And when he misbehaves like that, he's like any 2-year-old. I don't take him out because it's not good for him and it's not good for society. And so when he started to misbehave, I pulled the car back into the driveway and told him we weren't going to go right now. And this is the result. This is Charles's temper tantrum, so to speak, if that's how laymen classify it. I don't know what the medical diagnosis is for it. I've been told numerous things. We've been very transparent about Charles's medical condition. He suffers from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is PTSD, traumatic brain injury, post-concussion syndrome. He suffered a double stroke. He has another condition, and I don't have the medical term of that, but I'll put it in the comments because I can't look it up right now because I'm live. But he has all these neurological conditions that affect his ability to reason and to make good judgment, and that's why he has me as his caretaker. But I'm the punching bag when he's in his episodes, and some of you have sadly gotten to see that or hear that when you've been around us and he's gotten into his episodes. And then, like I said, I have numerous videos. They've been on lockdown because Charles has agreed that when he goes to the promised land, I can release those videos so that people can have a better understanding of what life is like for a caretaker who is caring for their disabled significant other that has a brain disease that's not going to get better, that's only going to get worse with time, and you live on eggshells, not knowing what's going to trigger him, how bad it's going to get, how long it's going to take before he gets back to his old self. But I'm going to say this is one of his worst ones yet. He told law enforcement that I committed a felony. And of course I have the video to prove that that didn't happen. So I'm not worried about it. But that's what I'm dealing with. Yes, I have a lot on my plate. And people have no idea. They see me being strong and mighty. That's what I have to be for Charles. That's what I have to be for my family, for my kids. That's what I have to be for myself. But I'm like anybody else. I break down and I cry at night when I'm by myself too. Okay? Yeah, Officer Karen Law Dog reporting the good, the bad, the ugly, and even being transparent about her own life, folks. I have nothing to hide and nothing to fear. Because I know that I've done right by Charles. I know I've done right with being a law-abiding citizen. And you know what? Don't fucking gaslight me because I exposed corruption. If there wasn't corruption, I wouldn't have it to expose. And we've had no reason to trust law enforcement. So how do I know that that's what Charles said? How do I know they didn't find him and they're going to deny him a standard of care again? I told them that we have a lawsuit against the county of Kern and the Kern County Sheriff's Department because on 2 occasions they wrongfully detained Charles. They arrested him and they denied him a standard of care and they harmed him physically. So I'm against them having Charles in their custody, and I've made that known. Thank you, Danielle. Thanks, Letha. I've been praying for me, girl. I got my little prayer warrior. I'm going to keep his identity on the lockdown. But if he's watching, he knows that I've shared to him. Why do I have to bear this burden? Like, what the fuck did I do? People who genuinely know me know that I'm a good friggin' person. I don't bother anybody unless they give me a reason. We gotta do better as a frickin' society. Shit's falling apart. Nobody trusts anybody. Everybody's grabbing what they can grab. Nobody wants to take accountability for shit anymore. You stuff a camera in somebody's face and they have a meltdown. Well, what the hell are you doing? If you're in a public space, then you can have a camera shoved in your face. Can I get a break? A girls' weekend, yeah, right. I don't even know what that is. If there's nobody else to take care of Charles. That's what I tried to tell him. And people who care for somebody who's mentally disabled, you know where I'm going with this. I told him, and some of you have heard the how he gets verbally. I'm his in-home supportive services caretaker. I put up with it. Nobody else has to. I mean, shit. I've seen doctors ban Charles from their medical facility because of his episodes. They reserve the right to refuse service. And I've told Charles, calm down. And he'll tell me when he gets in his episode about how I'm fired and he wants somebody else. Call up my advocate. I want somebody else. I don't think I'm being treated fairly. Along with all the words that go along with it. And I said, Charles, if you behaved this way with any other in-home supportive services caretaker, they would walk off the job.
and then they would call for somebody to come and evaluate you to see if you need to have some sort of intervention. He has the luxury of me just putting up with it and listening to it and ignoring it and hiding in other rooms while he goes through whatever it is he has to go through till he pops out of it. Like, this episode started yesterday on the freeway at a gas station because I drove over a crack in the road. That's really not what the episode was about. But that's what triggered it. Why? A crack in the road? I don't know. I don't know. But I have the video. And then he was quiet most of the ride home. And then when we got home, I got him situated. And then he woke up this morning and he was quiet at first. And then he came around and then he was back to his old self, even apologizing. And, you know, it's become a bit of a joke. Not a joke, but Charles will always say, "I'm sorry for the way you behaved." And maybe mentally that's his way of, you know, not taking accountability because mentally he can't. I don't know. I don't care. I tell him all the time, stop apologizing. He told me when I've had enough, that I can walk away. I'm not one to walk away easily. My attorneys have told me to have a plan. There will come a day. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. Charles deserves to be around people that love and care for him. We didn't ask for any of this. This wasn't our storm, and now we hate that it's fucking raining. So fuck the trolls that came out with that shit. Charles fell off of a horse in the fall of 2020, and his health has declined ever since. In March, he was missing for over 8 hours. Law enforcement showed up here and tried to throw that shade that, did y'all have an argument? You know, maybe he just wanted to get away from you. You know, they try to throw that shade, make you feel insecure in your skin and in your relationship. No, I know better. I knew it wasn't anything like that. And that's when we took Charles to the doctor and tests began, and we were right in the midst of doing those exams and tests whenever that incident at Centennial happened. You know, Amanda here abandoned her car in the drive path and blocked a legally designated handicap spot that we were entitled to. And then I filed a uniform complaint, and 6 weeks later they showed up on my doorstep with 6 false and defamatory allegations and statements and arrested Charles. 3 against me. 9 total. From a 5-minute visit to a school to pick up yearbooks and lunches. And Officer Whiting said, "This is every day." That's right, folks. Centennial Kern High School District policies, procedures, and practices that prevented safe and accessible access to school facilities for all legal users, especially those with disabilities. That's what started all this shit. And then when they, Louis Pena, folks, look his ass up. He used to be a Shafter PD until he beat up an old man. That led to a lawsuit that was settled. But see, In killing Kern County, they don't get rid of police officers that beat up people, disabled and elderly. No, they just move them around. And that's how he ended up in the Kern High School District. Luis Pena, folks, look it up. Like I said, if you don't know by now that what Officer Karen Law Dog says is fact, then you're a day late and a dollar short and I can't help you. So Kern High School District decided to give Luis Pena a job in 2018 or 2017. Don't quote me on the year. A African-American student over at BHS that was also disabled and suffering a mental crisis. Pena tased him. Tased an African-American student, disabled, mentally incapacitated with special needs. Tased him in front of other students while he was on the ground handcuffed. And then there were some jokes amongst the Kern High School District staff because public records were produced. And Kern High School District employees were making fun of that. You know, cracking jokes about hanging them from a noose or pistol whipping a black person. Yeah, so you guys don't know that shit. If you're not following the journey and you're only picking up bits and pieces, that's why you think my ass is crazy. No, I'm not crazy. I'm about as sane as they come. My eyes are open. I'm not a sleeper. See, the Bible talks about those times in Revelations when people will be asleep. I'm not asleep. I'm wide awake. So yeah, Luis Pena, that led to a lawsuit. And well, ask yourselves why Luis Pena was still working with the Kern High School District so that in July of 2021, Luis Pena could stuff Charles in the back of a police car and on a hot summer day and not turn on any air conditioning, knowing that Charles was disabled, knowing that Charles required medication, knowing that Charles had an appointment that day, knowing that the probable cause statement lacked any merit or probable cause for a felony arrest warrant anyway. But again, that's how corrupt Kern County is. So they shoved Charles in the back of a cop car, denied him a standard of care. He was passed out. Instead of transporting him to a hospital, they took him down to booking, where Pena tried to convince a nurse to go ahead and put him into the population that Charles was just faking. Couldn't convince the nurse. She wasn't having any of it. Charles was ultimately taken to KMC, folks. That's the choice hospital for Kern County law enforcement officials to dump citizens. Most likely because they have those doctors in their back pockets, because when Charles was taken there to KMC and I got the medical records, it was purported falsely that Charles was under the influence and that he was intoxicated. Charles doesn't drink. And before I even knew that those medical records contained those lies, when I picked Charles up after he was bailed out, because I know how dirty and corrupt this county is, I took Charles to a medical facility where we had blood drawn so that we could prove exactly what was in his system. We could prove that he was dehydrated and that he obviously was denied a standard of care while he was in Kern County law enforcement's custody, where he's at right now. And I've told them that I would like him returned to my custody, and I'm still sitting here. I've provided the documentation that shows that I have power of attorney. I've provided his medical history that shows and verifies that Charles lacks the capacity to make healthy choices for his health, safety, and well-being. That's why I'm his fiduciary. But yet they refuse to return him to my custody. So anyway, after that incident with Luis Pena, Charles's health has really declined significantly. In December of 21, he started, I think it was December of 21, maybe. No, back that up. Then in July of 22, there was the Muffin Man incident. That's right, folks. Kern County, Cynthia Jane Frank Zimmer. She's notorious for covering up for pedophiles. I mean, come on, Zach Scrivener. But earlier you heard that sheriff say Zach's not missing. So apparently he knows something that the rest of us don't know. The Muffin Man was spinning donuts in at the bottom of my street. And I took issue with that as a mandated reporter with newly licensed drivers in my home driving high-profile cars, afraid that they'd have to live with hitting one of those children that the Muffin Man was supervising. And mind you, I didn't know he was the Muffin Man at the time. They weren't wearing helmets, and off-road dirt bikes aren't legal in the streets. I saw something, I said something. That's what BPD tells us to do all the time. That's what neighborhood watches are for. Muffin Man, you live down the street. I didn't know he was Muffin Man at the time. So, just a friendly, hey, why do you have to do that shit at the bottom of my driveway? You know it triggers Charles. He was all turned up that day by that guy's behavior. Charles just wanted his watermelon. On the way down, we figured we'd find out who that was so I could submit the evidence that he was down there with 2 minors, contributing to the delinquency of a minor. But I need an address, or I need a person's name. Sheriff's office doesn't take complaints unless you have suspect information or an address. I drove down a street where I had a legal right to be. I was not violating the law. I wasn't doing donuts and riding off street dirt bikes. This lickety-slick got in behind the Corvette and started menacing and bullying me all the way down to my house. I figured I'll go down there where I have surveillance. Then there was a little pissing match, verbal, with Charles and this still unknown person that later turned out to be the Muffin Man. And then he took off in a jiff, and then Charles is back to, let's go get my watermelon. Well, as we were heading back down the road, we saw the neighbor. Decided to ask him if he knew who that guy was. At that point, this unknown person came and assaulted me. The phone that I was using to record for my safety was knocked from my hand to the ground, where this person picked it up, threw it against a neighbor's home, which would be felony vandalism because it was an iPhone. The value is worth more than $500. So 2 crimes, assault, felony vandalism. I called law enforcement. I had it all on video. The car's loaded with surveillance, plus my phone. Reported it, went back to my house, waited for law enforcement. They showed up, loped a guy. Walked into my house and arrested Charles. Now, mind you, when I made the report that I was the victim, they went down to the suspect's house first instead of coming to my house. And when I called dispatch to find out why, I was told because a more serious crime was reported down the street. Oh, what was that crime? Assault and felony vandalism. I said, that was me. I'm the one that reported that. Ma'am, we'll be down there. You know, they gaslight you, soften you up. Yeah, they came down all right. Said they had 3 witnesses down the street. Well, of course they did. The dude on the bike violating the law that I had video evidence of. His wife. And Ronnie, the hero Ronnie. The gun Ronnie. I'm sorry, not gun. The knife guy, Ronnie. Also, if that's the Ronnie that we pulled up in Kern County Superior Court's website, looks like he might be a Muffin Man too. And what we call these people are off the books confidential informants, because with a rap sheet like that and aliases like that, why the fuck are they in our neighborhoods? asking for a friend. So anyway, I wanted to know who assaulted me, especially after Charles was wrongfully arrested. So I put that video up, offered a reward, and voila, I had a taker. I had somebody that knew without a doubt who that was in that video, and I looked that person up, and that's when I learned he was the Muffin Man. He was out on bail at that time, facing 3 felony child sex charges because he was caught in a Kern County Sheriff's Office sting with a 94-page investigative report showing that he wanted to meet up. He's a 38-year-old man at the time, wanted to meet up with who he thought was a 14-year-old boy at an Oildale park, and Cynthia Zimmer made it all go away. Yeah, and I exposed it, and that's why I'm the bad guy. Charles got arrested that night. He was assaulted again. Left laying on a cold jailhouse floor for 5 hours. Being denied a standard of care where he was kept on what they called a suicide watch. It wasn't until Charles urinated 5 hours later that they decided to call for help. Now, I forgot to point out that before they hauled him off that night in July of 2022, an ambulance was called at Charles's request because he knew he wasn't feeling right. His blood pressure was 300 and something. No, sorry, 200 and something. Over 100 and something was his blood pressure. His blood sugar was 333. Kern County Sheriff's Office sent them down the street instead of taking him in. Everybody knew, Hall Ambulance knew, Kern County Sheriff's knew that I was his power of attorney. He was in no position to make medical decisions for himself, but they alleged that Charles shooed off the ambulance. Not possible. Not possible. So for 5 hours he sat in the jail on an alleged suicide watch. Denied a standard of care where they knew that his blood sugar was elevated, they knew that his blood pressure was elevated. Again, they ended up having to take him to the hospital. Again, no alcohol in his system because he doesn't drink. He takes too many meds for that. Got discharged the next day, took him right to the hospital, dehydrated again, and bruises on him. He had his head and neck stepped on. This was in July of 2022, folks. His health continued to deteriorate. In December, we shared with his neurologist the symptoms that he was experiencing that led us to believe that he may have some sort of head injury or something serious going on. We voiced those concerns again at appointments in, I believe, January, February, and again in May, only to be ignored. Now we're into 2023, folks. July 5th of 2023. And Charles was behaving very much similar the way he is now, with these episodes of confusion and yelling and screaming and thinking that he's being mistreated and whatnot. July 5th, he collapsed. Oh, wait a minute. Let me back it up. In December, at that appointment at the neurologist's office in December of 22, he collapsed in his neurologist's office. Just literally collapsed. His whole body was covered in sweat, head to toe. His neurologist hit him, pushed him, yelled his name, and then told me that I needed to get his panic and anxiety under control. I said, that's not panic and anxiety. Sent us home. Didn't call any ambulance, no follow-up, no, just panic and anxiety. I had to get Charles's panic and anxiety under control. That's what the neurologist said. July 5th, 2023, down to Kern County Superior Court. Charles collapsed again. This time I was inside the courtroom. Ambulance was called. As they were putting him on the gurney, half of his face started twitching. I asked them what was going on. The EMT told me that he was presenting with stroke symptoms. Asked me if I had a preference to a hospital. I said no. I specified two I didn't want him going to. They said they were taking him to Memorial, a primary stroke care center. Folks, I'm sharing all this in case something happens to me. In case something happens to Charles. That way there's a clear paper trail of the hell and back that we have been through with his care and why we're having these neurological problems to this day. Somebody just arrived, so let me see what's going on. I have no idea what's going on over there. But anyway, he was transported to Memorial Hospital, where I reported exactly the same history like I've reported to you. And they said they were going to do a CT scan, which a primary stroke care center is mandated to do once a patient's been deemed to be presenting with stroke symptoms. Doctor said he was going to do one. Next thing you know, Charles was being discharged. No brain scan. When I inquired why, I was told, doctor said that patients presenting with stroke don't usually show signs of improvement. And since Charles was showing signs of improvement, that brain scan was off the table. He was being discharged. It was being chalked up to another episode of panic and anxiety. That was July 5th. July 12th. He suffered from July 5th to July 12th. July 12th, he collapsed again. We were calling the ambulance. I told them exactly the same thing like I told them on the 5th. Like I told the doctor in December, like I'm telling you now. This time they did a CT scan. Charles had 2 brain bleeds. My cousins, 2 of them are EMT, critical care ICU nurses. They took a look at the ER paperwork from the visit on the 5th and saw numerous red flags that were ignored that caused my critical care ICU nurse cousin to say, demand an LP. Neurologist came in, I demanded the LP. He looked at me and said, well, I guess we can do that. It's the only test left in a series of tests to perform to find out what's going on, but I really don't think he has bacterial meningitis. Charles had bacterial meningitis. We now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 law enforcement cars here for whatever's going on.
Hey, if for whatever reason they decide to arrest me, make sure you call Bastion and Shaker. Because there's 5 cars here. And I don't see Charles. Even though I've requested that they bring him back. We have 5 vehicles here, folks. I've asked several, when I started this live feed, I've asked a while ago that they return Charles to my custody. I've provided proof of my identification, my license, proof that I have power of attorney. I've advised them that he and I are both represented by attorneys. I've also advised them that we have a lawsuit against the County of Kern, as well as the Kern County Sheriff's Department for their past practices with not providing a standard of care necessary for Charles's health, safety, well-being, and disability. They don't have probable cause to arrest me. I've already provided them with my statement. I've provided them with Charles's medical history. I've provided them with the power of attorney. And they did allege that I could show them my video from earlier when Charles got into his episode. But I told them that without consulting with my attorneys, because it would have legally protected HEPA information, that I wasn't willing to share that without consulting with my attorney, of course. And I guess maybe that's what he meant by I wasn't being cooperative. So we now have 5 Kern County Sheriff's officers here. Charles has already been located, but for some reason they're refusing to return him to me. Do you have that? I'm going to put this on me. Give me that so I can secure my... Oh, here they come. Go in the house and lock the door. Go in the house and lock the door. Go in the house and lock the door. Take my shit. Take my shit.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Sergeant Bulmer with the Sheriff's Office. Do you have a firearm on you right now?
I do not have a firearm
Do you have
on
a
me.
firearm with you at this residence right now?
I do have one.
Okay. All right. Give me your phone real quick.
Why are you
No,
taking
give
my
me your
phone?
phone.
What are you
Give me
doing?
your
Why am I under
Take your
arrest?
phone.
Why am I under